everybody, welcome back to the next episode for Atlantic Wall. We are going to get into the beach landing segment. There's a lot to do on this segment. There's a lot of repetition. So kind of the format I'm going to take is the first time we go through things, I'll go through the charts and show you how everything is done, maybe a couple. If I see something that's unique, it's just kind of a lot of the same stuff over and over. I like it. There's been some conversation lately online. There's certain people that don't like it. They think it's a lot of work for a little bit of result, and that's cool. It's to each their own, right? So, but they do not have a game where you can start right after the landings. They don't have a scenario for that. So you're going to have to at least do the landings once and then record everything and go from there. Now, typically, and I'll get into this right now. If you see here, I'll zoom in a little bit here for you. So normally there's some generic rules for how you combine these invasion units. These are called invasion units, okay? And basically these two dots represent roughly one step. Like this guy here is an artillery with one. Artillery doesn't break down, but just to show you, like here's the 316th, the 3rd Battalion, 16th Regimental Combat Team. There's 2 units there. So this would represent, if you go down here, we have the, let's see, where's the 316 at? They're down here. So that would represent 2 of the steps on these 3 for the 3rd Battalion of the 16th Regiment that landed on Omaha. Now, when you do this, if you're playing with the physical copy, it'd be a lot harder to do this. You could do it, but it'd be a lot harder. But I wanted to keep track of the actual invasion units versus the generic consolidation that we'll get into when we get to that point. It's going to take us a while to get to that point. But basically, when you start to get to these beach exit rows, they say beach exit right here, and up here on Omaha, for example, then you start to move from here out onto the map. And you can see this little red box right here. This would be for Utah. I'm not going to scroll all the way to Omaha, but then obviously Sword, Juno, and Gold. And you combine units that make it into these boxes. There's some rules for that. And you just kind of do it generically where everyone's going to take an equal disbursement of hits. Which I've done it that way. That works just dandy. There's no problem with that. I'm not being critical of it, but in extra nerding out fashion, I decided I would label them all for the actual units they are. So here's the 112 Combat Engineers, right? Because it tells you who they are right there, the 112th Combat Engineers. So I labeled that. So there's a step for the 112th Combat Engineers right there. So there would be, 3 of those breakdown units, or invasion units, sorry, for this module. So that's what I did. So when you see that, you don't have to do that. That's just extra nerd for you there, and I like that stuff. To me, it's all about the campaign, right? What would have, obviously the first waves are going to take a bigger beating than the guys coming in later. So I just decided to do it though. You don't have to do it that way. It doesn't make the game that much more realistic or accurate or anything like that. It's just, it's just something I want to do because if you're playing with Vassal, you got the ability to go on here, right click and create a label. You got a main label here. You can label it whatever you want. So I decided to do that this time. So without further ado, let's get into it. I think we're going to go, let me double check my little thing here. We're going to get up to the German fire segment. We're not going to do the German fire segment in this. That's a pretty in-depth process. But we will do that on the next video. So I apologize if you were excited to see how the fire works. It will not happen in this video. But we are going to start with the landing. So let's go ahead and get those started. Move some stuff around here. Close some things so we don't get a bunch of beeps and interruptions. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the Point du Hoc assault. All right, so I am going to zoom out here for a little bit. And here you can see these are the beaches. Well, since we're zooming here, we'll look a little bit. So here's Sword, Juno, and Gold, and up here's Omaha. And when we come off those beaches, our guys will start exiting off into these spots with you'll mark these spots with like the star, and then they'll get to exit off into these areas with the triangle. So that's I like that. I like the detail of that. I like the in depth of it. Um, I find a lot of Normandy, especially D-Day games, for me, the invasion part's a little too generic. Battle for Normandy is probably a little better than most games, so I kind of like that. But this is my favorite, and it's just a personal preference. Again, it's not a right or wrong, so if it's not your cup of tea, don't worry about it. But anyway, so let's do Point to Hawk, which is down over here. And I should have the rules in here for us and what we're doing. So first we get the ranger companies that are landing here. You get two of them, and those are right on here on the sheet, right? So we're in the beach. This is the beach invasion sheet if you're playing Vassal. You have the second ranger. There's two of them. So basically that's from this unit right here, the second ranger. There's 3 steps, but 2 of them are going to Point du Hoc. Okay? And we'll read through the rules on that. So to determine if the guns are actually in place, the German side rolls a d10. If the result is greater than 0, the strength point is flipped over to its reverse side. And we rolled a 9, so we flip it over. So if I'm hovering over that and I do the next thing, you'll see, oh, I guess I moved the Rangers off. I flipped it over, so now it's just a strong point with a 2. And then we put them back on there. And then during the June 6th AM game turn, the Allied movement phase, then the Rangers will do their assault. So we put them there for now, and they stay there for now. So they're scaling those cliffs, and they're getting ready to attack that and find out that it's not there. All right, so we start with Utah Beach. So let's go over here. Now, how this works, and I'll kind of run through it briefly here, but it's pretty basic. So like here you have all these are remember these are called beach invasion units. So right here is the 2nd Battalion of the 8th Regimental Combat Team. So these are the guys coming in on I think they're LCIs. I've been reading a lot. I thought there was really only one kind of landing craft, but when you start reading about D-Day, there's a lot of them. So so it's a little confusing. So I'm learning, but anyway, so these guys right here would be part of this guy right here, this 8th Regiment, 2nd Battalion of the 8th Regiment of the 4th Division, right? So these guys are the breakdown units, and they're in Uncle Red. So you're essentially going to grab all these guys and then put them down here into Uncle Red, okay? And then these guys are all Terra Green, or I guess it's Terra Green A. So like this group right here. So those guys would all go into Terra Green A. I guess that's actual. What they got? Okay. Because, all right, and I'll explain that. So there was the actual landing site right here, and then there was the planned landing site. So historically, they were supposed to come in on Uncle Red and Terra Green over here. But historically, they drifted and they came in here. Okay, so you got to roll to see what happens if that happens to you, and that'll decide how the battle goes. So let's close this down just a wee bit so I can see what's going on. And let's go ahead and start moving those guys. So we're doing the beach drift segment. So the Allied side will roll 1d10. If the result is an 8 through 9, the subsectors marked as planned, it's right here, these two right here, are used. On any other result, the subsectors marked as actual, right here, are used. You only make it one time, and then that's going to be the landing spots for every phase. And just to clarify, and I've never taught how to do this segment, so if I miss things or if I jump around, this is the first time kind of. This is a subphase, so this will be the first subphase. This will be the second AM subphase, and this will be the third AM subphase. And then you can see we start the PM subphases. So essentially, when you do an AM game turn on the main map, which is right here, on this map, when you do one turn on here, on the invasion module, that's actually going to be these 3 subphases will equal that AM turn. So we'll do all the AM subphases, then we go to the main map and do some movement on there, see who maybe if anyone got off the beach. That's a little difficult, especially on Omaha. I don't know if anyone could even get off on the 3rd subphase on Omaha. But essentially those 3 subphases will equal 1 game turn on the main game rules. Remember, in the main game, there's an AM and a PM and a night turn. And then I believe in Atlantic Wall there is no extended night activity, if I'm correct. Okay, so I haven't had to worry about that because they're not there. So let's go back down here and let's see what we did. All right, I'm going to lower this a little bit more because I want to be able to see the bottom. I want to be zoomed in enough so you can see, but not so close that you can't hardly see anything. And I don't want to be too far out because then you can't see anything. So that's my goal. Okay, so let's see what we rolled. And we rolled a 1. So that means we are on the actual. So we're going to be on the left side here. Okay, so the actual beaches. And now we go to the DD tank segment. Now, if you're playing with the rules, this is the PDF version of the rules. You literally want to just read through this and go step by step. It'll give you kind of an explanation here about what everything is, how things kind of function. Okay, it gets into setup and standard units and beach display and tide markers, and then it gets into the different phases. There's going to be a landing segment, a German fire segment, then the Allied fire segment, Allied movement, German movement, assault, where they're basically trying to knock out WNs and units are fighting and assault in the same hexes or the same spaces. Then you have a demolition segment, and then you have pin recovery. Okay. And then down here it says in the first subphase of June 6th AM, there are 3 additional segments. So you have the landing segment for Point du Hoc, Utah Beach Drift, and now the DD. So all I did is go through the Point du Hoc rules right here. It's all spelled out for you, plain as day. The big thing with G.O.S.S is take your time. If you're in a race and you just want to bang it out, you just want to get through the turn because that's what's important, play SCS or something then, because this is about detail. And I'm saying that for me because sometimes when I'm trying to rush through things, then I start getting frustrated because I'm skipping things and missing things, and it's really an immersive thing, right? I think the history is fascinating, and I think if you read the history while you're doing it or know the history while you're doing it, look at what's happening. There's like little stories going on in the game. But anyway, I'll get off my soapbox there. I don't mean to get preachy. I'm just sharing my opinions on how I think G.O.S. and G.O.S. gets kind of a bad rap as being too complex. I get a little uh, defensive about that because I think if I can do it, anybody can do it, and I can do it. So it is a complex game, but once you went through the motion a few times and whatnot, it's really not that complicated. Okay, so we go to the DD tank segment. I'm not going to read through all that because I put the stuff that's important that we need to focus on. So there's a requirement for DD tank use. You're going to get to make some decisions in this game. So one of them is on all beaches except Omaha, at least 1 DD tank unit on each beach, i.e. each on Sword, Juneau, Golden, Utah, must be selected to swim ashore. On Omaha Beach, the 741st Tank Battalion, they're an Easy Red 1 and Easy Red 2, they must swim ashore. The remainder of the DD units on Omaha may attempt to swim ashore or land normally. It's the choice is left to the Allied player. Now, before I read any of the history and knew that those poor DD tanks didn't have much of a chance because they let them off too far back, there was too much waves, whatever the reasons were, combination of reasons were, just looking at the stats in the game, you don't want to let them swim ashore. Now, if they got ashore, would it be helpful because they're on there early? Yeah, but there's not a lot of them that are going to make it, at least on Omaha. Okay, so let's see what we did here. So I said I'm going to do the minimal since survival is tough on Omaha. And then on all the other beaches, I'm going to try to land them for max support. So I decided on Utah, Juno, Sword, and Gold, I'm going to land them for maximum support. And Omaha, I'm going to try to preserve them by only landing what I have to, or swim ashore with only what I have to, right? Okay, so we get the DD tanks out here. Now again, so here's the DD tanks. You can see now I grabbed them from here, so we're just going to grab all the DD tanks from up top here. And then when we get to it, this is the Commonwealth Beaches, Gold, Juno, and Sword. This is the Canadian beach, Juno, and then you have the Commonwealth here. Or I guess it'd be more the UK. I'm learning a lot of British history. So here's what these beaches are going to look like, just to give you an overview. They're not as robust as Omaha, but they're a little tougher than Utah. And so we'll have to go grab all the DD tanks from this top row right here. So that's how that works. This is zoomed in a little bit more. So let's go ahead and put those down. So we're putting them down. I got to put them in the right spot. Remember when you come down here, I grabbed them here, and you don't just go straight down. You got to read what it is. So it was easy red 2. And I think I put them in Fox green, and it's like, no, you don't just go straight down. So you can see Omaha is a lot more complex. It is a tough beach to get off of. That's for sure, certain. All right, so I'm just going to place those now. I'm going to go ahead and start with the American beaches, then I'll jump over and do the British beaches. So I'm going to show you one or two examples of how you do it. And they do have the information up here. So I just have to find where it is on here. I'm used to looking at my sheet. Okay, so DD tank survival. Each DD step must roll a D10, modified result of 0 or less. It survives. At Omaha, all of the 741st Tank Battalion must swim. So it tells you kind of the same thing right there. And then all British beaches have a -7 modifier, and Utah has a -8. All right, so if I roll an 8 on Utah, -8, that drops me to a 0. Therefore, I survive. So on Utah, only a 9 will kill a step, and you roll for each little dot, not for each unit. And I'll distinguish that for those that aren't sure. The British beaches, it's basically if you roll an 8 or a 9, they're going to lose a step. Otherwise, they make it. So I decided those are pretty good odds. But if you go look at Omaha, you got to roll a straight up 0 to make it to the beach. And you'll see how well that works. So I like to use this little spade kind of as my laser pointer. So if I'm moving around, it helps me later because I played this turn probably a month and a half ago or a month ago. So it'll kind of remind me where I'm at. Plus it moves the camera or the log file recording to there before I start actually doing stuff. So remember now, here's what we're talking about. So you got those 2 units, but each of those has 4 little diamonds. So that's 8 steps. So I'm going to roll each of those steps. All right. So I always do top to bottom. They're both the same unit, but just I like to do top to bottom. Okay, so let's go see how it went. So each sector has 8 steps. So remember each of these lines here, these little columns, that's a sector. Okay, so I rolled a 9, a 0, a 2, a 3, an 8, a 5, a 7, and a 5. Now, if you remember right, 9 was bad. So 1 loss, and it was on the top guy. So I'm going to put a spade under that when we're done here. Now I'm going to do the next sector first, though. And I got an 8, 3, 0, 2, 7, 6, 2, 3. So no losses there. So we had lost 1 step here and no losses there. So we like that. So if you look here now, I've put a spade under there, which represents a loss. As soon as I take my second loss, we flip him over because his other side will be a yellowish orange strip, and he'll have 2 steps, okay? So, I'm not sure why I flipped that over yet. Maybe I was just looking. Okay. Now, okay, Utah, now each 0 or 10 is fine, everything. Okay, I meant Omaha. That was Utah. So now we go over to Omaha. So the little spade should jump over here with us. There it is. Just so you know what you're wondering what these red things are, these are beach obstacle numbers. They kind of represent a number of beach obstacles. It doesn't mean there's 4 obstacles there. It's just a relevant amount. We'll get into that later. So here's if you look here, it's the 741st Tank Battalion, right? They're all labeled accordingly. And they're for whatever reason, these were labeled, they don't come with 4 in each one. If you look, they each have 2 steps. So there's 8 total steps, but it's with 4 counters. All right, so we'll go ahead and we're going to roll that. We need anything but a 0 is a sunken tank. It gets swamped or whatever. So let's go ahead and roll. We got to roll 8 of them. 7, 3, 3, 4. None of those made it. 8, 8, 3, 6. So the first stack is all gone. Boop, goes over there. So now you can see why I don't want to swim ashore in Omaha. Now let's try the other one. Can we get anybody? 8, 4, 4, 1, 3, 5, 8, 4. So we get nobody. So none of the tanks made it. I think that's the first time I've ever had it where no tanks make it. I mean, out of 16 rolls, I didn't even get 1 0. So whatever. Like I told you guys in previous videos, there's a reason I don't go to Vegas. Okay, so let's go down now. We should be doing the Commonwealth Beaches. Okay, so on here, it's a -7, so it'll be an 8 or 9 is a lost step. So that'll be all the way across here in the DDs. So we're going to zoom in. So here we're zoomed out a little bit. We're going to go grab all these DDs off here, and we're going to line them up over here into the, basically the, what do they call that? That is the C box. So they're coming in on the, I think they'd be LCTs, I want to say. I don't think it's LCA for armor. I think it was LCT for tank. But any of you guys that are more solid on the history, feel free to let me know. So let's go ahead and line them up. So I'll just kind of bang through these real quick, or we'll be here forever going through every little one. So here they all line up. Here's my little pointer. Now I'm not going to go through every one. I'll do the first one, and then we'll just blow through them. So here they have the same lineup as Utah. They have 2 armored units, and they have 4 steps each. So we're going to roll for the 8 steps. If we get an 8 or a 9, that's going to be a loss. So let's just go through the first one. What was I moving there? I must have moved something because it moved the camera. Anytime you move in the log file, it goes to try to show you what you're doing. So, okay, so this first one, we got a 0, 5, 3, 6, 3, 5, 3, 1. So they all made it. And we'll do one more like that. The next one over is a 2, 2, 2, 9. That's going to take a hit. A 7, 8. That's another hit. A 7 and a 3. So they're going to take 2 step losses. And what I'm going to do is, I don't recall if it says there's maximum step loss in the amphibious module, but it's to your best interest to keep as many units on the board as you can for firing. I think maybe not. Maybe the beaches wouldn't be as crowded if I just eliminate or flip guys over, but what it is what it is. All right, so now this one here, you'll see me put a spade under each one. So if we go look at them, they each have a step loss. Now, to speed this up, I'm going to go ahead and blow through this, and you'll be able to see the hits as I flip stuff over. So boom, 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 boom. It looks like there's a couple step losses there. Boom, 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 boom. There's 2 there, so we're averaging 2 here on all these. And then Juno Beach, boom, boom, boom. They take 2 there. And we'll do this one next here, and they took 0, so that's good. And we'll scroll over to here, and we'll finish up Juno Beach. So boom, boom, they're taking shots. One of them sinks or gets, whatever. I think this represents not making it to shore for technical reasons or whatever. So probably not shooting. I suppose maybe getting hit out in the water. I don't know. Looks like we got at least 1 there. And the last 2 we get, there's 1. And that one's got 1. Looks like 1. Okay. So that's the end of that. Now, they close this. We'll go back over to Utah. I usually go from Utah across. Sometimes I'll change that up depending on what I have to do, but I like to stick with 1 set of beaches. Mostly because Utah is fairly easy. So when I was learning the game, this is a great one to learn on because there isn't as much firepower, there isn't as many units. A little easier to learn. Now you don't get to learn infantry or anti-tank guns like over here, but take it in baby steps. So tank drift, that's rule 42.7.3. Units landing on Utah do not check for drift, move the units from the C box to the shingle box in the subsector they were originally placed. So they're coming in here. This is the beach box, which is where most of your guys will land, but these tanks are coming early, so they get to go right up to the shingle, drive up onto the shingle, so they can start engaging the WNs. So we move them up. For all the other beaches, you roll a 1d10 for each unit, not each step. This is where we're rolling for each unit, not per step. And you consult the beach drift table. So there's there's nothing to roll for on Omaha, so let's close that. And I'll open up the UK one, and then we're going to go over here and we're going to kind of look at the drift table. And again, I don't remember always where it is on here. Okay, so Omaha would be right here. All right, let me see if I can zoom in if that's better. Okay, so Omaha is right here. If you roll a 0 to 1, you would not drift at all. You'd go straight ahead. Now, we're not going to roll Omaha because everything died. On a 2 through 5, you drift 1 to the left. A 6 through 8, you go 2 to the left. And on a 9, you go 1 to the right. Here are the British beaches, a lot more forgiving. A 0 to 7, you don't drift. An 8, you go right. A 9, you go left. Okay? So, let's see, Utah, roll for the, so the Utah thing was, you rolled for the whole thing and it was planned or actual, so it's different, okay? So, let's zoom out a little bit so we can see a little better. So you remember for the UK beaches, it's basically a 0 to 7, they're fine. So let's go ahead. Now, here's the rule. If they drift off, like if this guy gets a drift to the left and he goes off, it's the first AM subphase. So then he goes to the first PM subphase over here, and he won't come in for half a day, and then he gets to retry coming in, which they don't drift at. They only drift on this first round, the first AM subphase. You don't drift after that. So it would delay some guys coming in. Usually doesn't wreak too much havoc, but it does matter, right? All right, so let's walk through how they work. I made a little note there, none to worry about Amazon with a frowny face because all the tanks sank. So here we are. 0 to 7 will be fine. 8 will go to the right. 9 will go to the left. Now, again, you're not rolling per step because remember when we did the coming in for to see if they can survive floating in, we did per step. Now we're going to do per unit. All right, so here's the little pointer spade. We roll a 3, so he's good. We roll a 2, so he's good. Now, I moved him up to show you, but later on I tend to roll everything and then move everybody as they go. So let's go ahead and show you one more. We got this group here. It's still only 2, but they got spades under them because of casualties. I'm doing there. I guess I'm organizing. We roll a 7, so he's safe. We roll a 3, so he's safe. So they went up. Okay. Now let's do this group. We got 2 more here. We roll a 7, so he's good. We rolled an 8. So an 8 will go to the right. So one guy goes, I did the top guy first, so he's going to go up there. And the other guy is going to jump over into Jig Green. Now, you don't roll for him again because he'll go right up here. So technically, you probably just want to roll them all, and then you move everybody up at once. But this kind of shows you how they're moving up, you know. So that's why he moved here, and then that's where he went. So he drifted to the right. And then we got this guy here. He's good and good, so they just go straight forward. Now, there is rules for how many units you can have in a area. Like here, it's like a square. So in each of these boxes, you can have 4 vehicle units or armored units. That doesn't mean steps, that means counters. You can have 6 personnel, like engineers, infantry, commandos, stuff like that. And you can have 1 artillery. Okay? So that's going to matter because if you get over those limits, they start getting pinned. They can't do anything because there's just too many on the beach. All right, so we did that. I am just going to go and blow through these. So again, we can keep moving forward because again, there's going to be a lot of repetition. There's no reason to walk you through every result because we'll be here until the second coming. So we'll go ahead and just roll these, and I was moving them up as I did them. I thought there was one where it drifted off, but maybe that'll be during the segment. Oh, there's a guy that drifted to the right, and he goes up there. So that ends up being our scattering of our tanks as they come drifting in. And let's go ahead and shrink that down because I think we're going to end up going to Utah. Looks like I'm moving some stuff around here. I get a little OCD on stacks and all that stuff. You'll just have to deal with it. For you guys that don't worry about having everything spaced out really nice and stuff, I get kind of weird that way. But anyway, it is what it is. And then I like to take the move markers off, so because that's not technically movement yet. All right, landing segment. So now we're going to go up and we're going to start grabbing these rest of these units. This is a leader, this is a gun, artillery, there's some engineers, some infantry, and another tank unit. So we're going to pull these down, and then they have to roll for drift as well. Okay, so I pull them down here all at once, and then I got to organize them, and they go right here into this first. So they're coming in off the boats. Okay, so we put these guys there, and then we're going to load up Omaha. So here comes some infantry and engineers, a little bit of armor to help out, but they got no armor really helping out like Utah and like the British beaches are going to have. And the next question is, I think I started doing the British beaches next. Yeah, okay. So we'll just go through all them. So again, we're pulling everything down here. It tells you like here's King Green. So you're going to see all these units here are going to drop down into King Green right here. So we'll just go ahead and do that. So they're coming in on the LCIs and the LCTs and the I don't remember how many there are, but there's a bunch of them. All right, so that's that. Now let's go back over to here. And we should be doing, oh, this is, okay, so obstacle clearance. So this is where these numbers come in handy, and you want to get rid of these. So this is, the tide changes every turn. So on Omaha and Utah, it's low tide. It's medium tide starting for the UK beaches, okay? So they're in medium tide, and that matters because there's different rules for that, okay? So now we're going to try to clear obstacles, and there's a chart right here. I'll try to zoom in. Okay, so what we're going to do is first of all, you look on here. If it's a high tide, all units will check with no die roll modifiers. If it's a medium tide, all units check for obstacle clearance, but you apply a +1 DRM. Okay, so they get a little better chance of clearing them. So the Commonwealth Beaches are going to have a +1. Low tide, only armor and weapon units check for obstacle clearance. Armor and weapon units suffer step losses on a DR of 0 only. Okay, so I'm not going to stay on this little graph, but I'll walk you through it. So we're going to go down here, and now in the beginning here I make a mistake because I start doing this for the everybody, and I'm like, oh wait a minute, it's low tide. So then I'll put it all back. But for argumentative sake, let's take a look at this tank here. There's a 3 there, and he has to check because it's armored vehicles or artillery. So those two will have to check. The personnel up here do not. So if we have a 3, we go up here. I actually have a piece of paper when I do this. I have a printed out version, so I don't have to scroll back and forth. So if we look here at the number of obstacles is a 3, there's no die roll modifiers on a low tide. So a 0 to 3 will pin a unit. There is no chance of a step loss. Okay, so that's important. So first I make the mistake, so we'll zip past that because I put right here low tide, only vehicle units check for obstacle clearance. And then I start, oh, maybe I didn't. I wonder when I did that. There is a time when I make a mistake and I go, oh, wait a minute, I don't have to roll for them. So we'll see what happens. But okay, so I rolled a 1 and a 2. So no step loss or pin. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. My bad. What is it here? Low tide, only armor weapon units check for obstacle clearance. Armor and weapon units suffer a step loss on a DR of 0 only. So it's not the 1 through 3. That'll be at medium or high tides with some modifiers. So it's anything but a 0, they're safe. So whenever I do it, I usually go from top left to right, bottom left to right. So if I just start banging through stuff, that's what I'm doing. Again, going to be a lot of repetition. So we're not going to cover every little die roll. I don't want you here till Christmas. So, okay, so then I do this one. We get a 4 and a 0. Oh, we take a hit there. So they don't take, they do take a step loss. They don't take a pin. So again, we go up here, got to read the details. They suffer a step loss and a die roll of 0 only. So there's no pins, but there'll be a step loss if they fail. So now, artillery is a little different on the beach. If you read the rules, they can take up to 3 hits, I believe it is, before they're gone. But they still keep fighting. I don't even know if they're gone after 3 hits, but the thing is when you're all done and you're leaving the beach, you have to look at all your artillery and see how many steps they lost. And we'll go through that when we do it, but it's like 1 step loss, they're delayed, and 2 or more step losses, they come off, they're eliminated. You'll have to rebuild them, I believe. So you don't want to start taking step losses on these. And again, you'll see why I don't go to Vegas here pretty soon, because especially Omaha. Omaha, I don't want to give too many spoilers, but Omaha, let's just say, lived up to its name. Uh, and that's interesting because I've been reading some history about it, and they're saying there's some things that are being revised, that Omaha wasn't as chaotic, and things were happening better than the lore would tell us. Although they still took a buttload of casualties, but um, they're doing okay. I think it's on here when I started rolling. Nope, I didn't. I know I did because I watched the file. So we'll see what happens. All right, so we got 2 armor here. We're gonna have 2 armor here. We got 4 armor there and 4 armor there. So we got to roll for each one of those units. So I'm just gonna bang through them. Okay. So any zeros? Oh, there was a 0. No zeros. No zeros. There's another 0. So I couldn't get any zeros to get guys on the beach, but I can certainly get zeros to take hits. But anyway, I said it could have been worse. So we're on to the UK beaches. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to bang through those real quick. So this one we got, well, these will be a little bit more. We'll go through this one because these guys, remember, are at a medium tide. All units checked for obstacle clearance with a +1 DRM. So let's kind of walk you through how this goes. So there's going to be a 5, right? And we're going to have to roll for each of those guys. And if we look at the 5, a 5 is right here, so a 2 through 4 is obstacle pin. And right here, a 0 or a 1 is a step loss. Now there is a +1, so we can't get a 0. So essentially it means a 1 will be, if we roll a 0, we'll get a step loss. And if we roll a 1 through 3, we're going to get a pin because of the modifier. Okay? And we roll per unit, not per step. All right, so we got our little pointer thing here. So we're going to roll the Centurion first. So medium tide, +1. I put them all in here so I'd have a, then I can look on here too. But anyway. Oh, and I put 3 obstacles by accident, but it's actually 2 obstacles. So anyway, so we'll roll them up. Okay, so there's 5 obstacles, not 3. So this is what it should be. And so, okay. All right. And then if there's leaders, they can't get pinned. I don't have any leaders there. Oh, I know what I was doing here. So I was on this one and I accidentally went back to the Omaha beach and started doing stuff, but I realized that it's low tide. So I was looking at the wrong beach. That's what happens when you're doing a long term file and you get a phone call or somebody comes in, asks you a question, and then you come back and try to find your place and you're wrong. So okay, now we're gonna start. Okay. So right here, uh, oh, and what I ended up doing is I just, let's see what I do. Did I take all the original rolls? Sometimes I'll do that. Yep, I ended up taking all the original rolls because I already rolled them all and I didn't want to mess up the statistics. So that's the OCD thing coming on. Okay. All right. So 8, 2. So this 2 would be a +1. So that's going to be a pin. So you can see here that these are step losses. So the Avery had a step loss. I just recorded it because I was on Omaha and Utah by accident. Sorry about the mix-up there. So just to clarify, I I got interrupted or something, came back, was working on it, and I for some reason was still looking at uh, Omaha Beach and was rolling for these guys here, and then realized, oh wait a minute, I don't roll for Omaha or Utah because it's low tide. I already rolled for all the tanks. So then I jumped back over here. I took the original rolls, and now I'm rolling this. I'll go through this one step by step with you since we kind of got sidetracked a little bit there. All right, so I'll show you how this works. So you can see we're starting to get results where people are getting pinned. I got 2 Avery tank units pinned. I got 1 infantry pinned, and we got 1 step loss over here. So let's look at this one. It's a 4. There's a +1 modifier for being medium tide. And if we look at the 4, a 1 through 3 is a pin, a 0 is a step loss. Well, there's no way to get the 0, right? Because it's going to be a +1, so we won't lose anybody, but we have a chance of being pinned, right? So that's a 5, we're good. That's a 6, that's a 3. So what's that going to be? Oh, that's a 0, so that ends up being a 1. So that's 2 pins. So I got, and if you look at the stack here, if you blow it up, these 2 guys are under the pin marker, right? So we got 2 pins there. Now we got 2 tanks to roll for. 8, he's good, and a 0, so another tank gets pinned. So I put the pin marker. We'll do one more. It's going to be the same. Basically, a 0 would be a casualty, but we can't take a step loss. A 1 through 3 is a pin, but we have a +1, so it essentially ends up being a 0 to 2 is a pin. Everything else is safe. Okay? So let's go ahead and roll, and I always go left to right, top to bottom. So 4, he's safe. 9 safe, 9 safe, and then the 3 infantry, a 6, an 8, and a 6. So everyone there would be safe. So they're dodging all the obstacles because they're coming in. They essentially, when they were coming in on Omaha Beach, as the tide went up, the obstacles got buried under the water, and they had, I think they're called teller mines. They would put them on these pieces of wood. You've seen them like sticking up like this. The boats are coming in this way. The teller mine's up here. It hits that, boom, not good, right? Um, so essentially, when the Americans landed at low tide, they could see everything. As far as the beach obstacles, they could see anything that they would catch on or that they would hit and explode or whatever. As the tide comes up, those get harder to see, and at high tide, everything's under the water. So you're basically playing Russian roulette to get to the beach. Okay, so that's essentially what we're doing. Now, to speed this up, I'm going to just go ahead and blast through these. Got any questions? Feel free to ask in the comment section below. But we ran through a few of these. I apologize for the confusion. I may do some more on the American beaches the next time I run through this. So here we're taking some step losses now, okay? Because this is 5 obstacles. So if you look up here, a 5 is 0 to 1 is a step loss, and a 2 to 4 is a pin. So that means if we roll a 0 with a +1, we get a 1, so we start getting step losses. So basically we don't, these ones that are 4 or less, we're only going to take pins. But if it's 5 or more, and I think the highest they go is 6, then there's a chance we're going to get some casualties. So anyway, I'm just going to blast through these real quick. Oh, okay. Sorry. I guess I was. So, drift determination. Drift determination is only conducted in the first subphase of the June 6th AM game turn, amphibious invasion stage. Units landing on Utah do not check for drift. They check for that drift in the beginning, and that's if they land on the actual beach or the planned beach. So we move them up, and at low tide, you move up into the beach box, not the shingle box. All right. But we are going to have to roll for Omaha. So Omaha, you roll per unit, not per step. So here I'm going to have to roll for the 2 infantry and then an engineer. So Omaha, a 0 to 1 is no effect. 2 through 5 is 1 to the left. 6 through 8 is 2 to the left. And a 9, you go 1 to the right. So we'll show you how it works. So I'm going to go top to bottom, left to right. So here I'll go these guys, then these guys, right? So starting right here though, let's see if I got my pointer on. I don't think I did. So 4, 0. So he drifts. The 4 drifted, and the 7 is going to drift 2, and he goes off the board. And what happens when they go off the board? It's the first AM subphase, so he will go to the first PM subphase. So, here you have Omaha, you have the first subphase, second, third AM subphase, and then the first PM subphase. So guess what? He goes right there. So it's going to take him half the day to turn around, get picked up, whatever happened, get moved back over and take another run at the beach, okay? If they don't drift, we leave them right here. All right, so now we're going to roll for this box right here. 3, 7, and 7. So one left and 2 go 2 left. So I'm rolling them all, then moving them. Oh, and I got my pointer back. So I'll try to work on and establish some of these patterns so I'm consistent. All right. So, I guess I got 3 to the left, 2 there. Okay, these guys right here, 4, 6, 5. So 1 left, 2 left, 2. Oh, I'm organizing. Okay, so that's where my my OCD is getting the better of me. I'm starting to try to put the infantry together and the engineers separate because they have different roles when we start moving up the beach. And so I'll do one more here. We got the 2 infantry first. So we get a 9 and a 7. So the 9 is going to go to the right. Oh, I guess I'm going to roll them all. 9, 7, 6. So 9 to the right, 7 goes 2 left, 6 goes 2 left, and then I got 2 armored units here. I roll a 6 and a 0. So the 6 is going to go 2 to the left, and he had a step loss, and this guy is going to stay right there in the easy green. Okay? So do you see how that works? I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. You're basically rolling you got 1 left, 2 left, stay where you are, or 1 to the right. So I'm going to blow through these again just for time. You're going to see the chaos of Omaha Beach as everybody pretty much drifts and doesn't go where they're supposed to. Okay. And okay, so here's again, you're just going to have to deal with me. I'm a little OCD, my apology, but I like to have everything lined up. That's kind of my thing with wargaming. I like everybody, and then I moved everybody up. So after all the drift is done, everyone goes into the beach box. Now that's going to change depending on the tide. Sometimes they're going to go to the shingle box. All right. I believe that's correct. I guess we'll find out when we get there. But they all go in the beach box for now. So I got a little more trekking. So we only had one guy drift off the map, so whatever. That's not the worst thing. We didn't have anything drift and overstack. So remember, we can only have 4 armored units. So if one of these armor units would have drifted into dog red, then he would automatically pin. Because as soon as you overstack, you automatically pin. All right, so let's go look at the UK beaches. And zip on up. Usually I go left to right, so let's see if I do that. Okay, so same. Their beaches are a little different. British beaches are a little nicer. So 0 to 7, you're fine. And 8, you go 1 to the right. And 9, you go 1 to the left. So I'm not going to walk through all those because you guys can figure it out. So you'll see when you see 8s and 9s, people are going to move. So they're kind of drifting. And you can see we got pin guys. There's a guy went to the right. We got a couple guys going to the right. All right, now we're going over to Oh, I moved all the beach up. So once they all did drift, then I moved them up. And then I organized them into the box because we got pin guys from hitting obstacles. And remember, if we start overstacking, we're going to have pins as well. So just you have to put up with me on my OCD while I straighten out those boxes. All right, so now we're going to go over here. And again, I'm not going to go through all the details. I'm just going to blow through them here real quick. So anyway, so blah, blah, blah. Looks like everyone's staying in place there. That's pretty crazy. So Juno is landing where they want to land. And then we're on Sword. Oops, I moved them all up, so they're all moved up. I had a guy I moved up. You didn't see it, but he went off the map, so I had to put him. I don't know where he is on here, but I put him on here somewhere for the PM. I gotta go look. Sorry. Was it this guy? No. Oh, right here. This little landing one. Oh, I'm on the wrong beach. He's on Sword Beach, so there he is right there because he drifted too much. So, all right, so let's finish it up. All right, so now what I want to do is I'm going to start combining all my pin guys because I have a variety of guys marked pin. You see I got a pinned armor there and a pin guy here. They might as well all go together. Did I do Omaha and Utah first? I don't think there was any. Let's go back and look at the UK beaches. You can watch me organize my guys. So there we are. We're organizing, putting all the pinned ones, putting all the infantry units together. Anywhere where I can spread them out so I can see the different troop types, I'm doing that because, that's just the way it is. So anyway, all right, I marked them all moved, and I said, let's clean up the U.S. beaches. So let's go see, just make sure everybody's lined up right. Okay, so that's going to be it of that phase. So when we come back on the next one, it's the German fire phase, and that's when these WNs are going to start firing at these dudes coming up on the shingle and the beach. And there's bad modifiers for out in the beach unless you have armor, and even then it's not great. The shingle, you have some protection, but you're still not protected. And then all these squishies, all these infantry and engineers. So if you could just, kind of take for an example how it works, just to give you a little bit of a preview, is this Windenstad has a Winden stand-in Neston, I think it's called, has a 1 diamond there, so it has a strength of 1. When it fires, it gets to double anything right in front of it, okay? And then he can fire out here and shoot at this one, but it's only at 1, and he can't shoot at this one because these guys prevent him from doing that, and then he can shoot at these at ×1. So this would only be fired at with a 2, and this one would be a 1 if I'm correct, and we'll walk through that. But let's just look at Omaha to give you an example here of how nasty Omaha is. So you can see, like right here, these 2, 1, and 1 all funnel down into this sector right here. So, that's already stacking up a lot. You have to max out at 7, and you'll see that when we do it. But you can see where there's multiple lanes of fire, like here. Windenstad 62S, 64, and 62N all funnel into Easy Red 2. Not so easy. He's a 2, 3, and a 4, so firing at double firepower at this group, because there's nothing in their way, is an 8. Now, again, you max out, I believe, at 7, so it's a 7, but if you're maxing out, that ain't going to be good. And right here, we got some juicy stuff here. WN 7071 is 3 steps. So right here, just this one lane is going to be 6s firing at these guys here. And then they can fire along here as long as there's nobody immediately to their front. And we'll go through that when we do it more. We'll go through all the steps on that because that's one of the more complex things. Even I have to once in a while double check my work on that. I'm not going to say I did it 100% right on every one of them. Human error tells me that there might have been a few that I missed. And then let's just look at the Commonwealth beaches real quick. So you can see here now, these infantry, they can only fire in the hex that, I keep calling it a hex, but you know what I'm talking about, the space that they're in. These anti-tank units can fire out at tank units, or they can fire in their box if there's a guy in there. These guys, all of these, including the WNs up here, they can only fight in this box. This box up here represents a bigger area than, say, this area is down in here do. Okay, so you can only fire in this. I'm fascinated because when you look at these, you can see the actual beaches, see the towns and stuff. If you take off the counters, you can see, the different towns and where this is exiting. And just to give you a little understanding here, if we're coming in on the Sword Beach, I think it's Sword Beach, yeah, Sword Beach here. If you exit off, if these guys exit off here, that's C4911. So this is the part that I like. So then you go find C4911 over here, okay? And 4911's right here, so you put this little beach area marker on here, and then the units can exit anywhere on here or any triangle touching that. So here they're a little condensed, but if you look over here, well, even the next UK beach, the Canadian beach, if you exit off or right here at Corsellis, I'm sure I butchered that, if you exit off there, this is where you're coming in at, and you can start in one of the triangles touching it. So you can start in these three. And I'm already pushing in off the beaches, so I already know what's going to happen. But that's the part that to me is just fascinating to see who pushes off where, to see the chaos. Again, I'm playing with the actual unit names on each of these invasion units for fun. So you're going to see, especially on Omaha, where some of these units I don't know if anybody got completely eliminated, but a lot of these got down to one step where some didn't get touched at all. Now, obviously, they got touched a little bit, but it wasn't significant enough to knock out basically a company level of the battalion. So, anyway, we'll cut it off there. If you got any questions, make sure you post it down below. Hopefully, I didn't go too fast over anything. And we'll try to cover some of that stuff again when we do it for the first time on a video. It's always good to kind of reinforce that. And then again, we're going to start with the German fire phase. So that's going to be fun. So anyway, you got any questions, fire away, and I'll see you next time.